Welcome to the deep dive. Thanks everyone for sending in your sources. This time we're really tackling something important, paternity leave.
Yeah, lots of interest in this one.
Definitely. We've got these overviews you sent, looking at rights, eligibility, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Our mission today really is just to cut through all the details and, get to the heart of it. What is paternity leave? Who gets it? How does it work?
And how it fits with other leave types, too. That's key.
Exactly. We want to pull out the essential stuff, make it clear, maybe highlight some things you wouldn't expect. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's get straight to the essentials.
So first things first, based on these sources,
Mhm.
what is paternity leave? Like in simple terms.
Okay, so fundamentally, it's 7 days paid leave
7 days paid. Got it.
for a married male employee. And it kicks in right after his spouse gives birth,
Mhm.
or, sadly, if there's a miscarriage.
The purpose, why is it there?
Well, the sources really highlight this. It's so the father can support his wife, during recovery.
And help with a newborn, right? Be involved.
Exactly. Active involvement right from the start.
Okay, 7 days full pay. That seems clear. But a practical thing people probably wonder about, what if you don't use all 7 days?
Ah, yeah. Can you save them up? Or get cash instead?
Exactly.
The sources are pretty explicit here. Nope, you can't convert it to cash. And it doesn't accumulate, so you can't roll it over to the next year or anything. Use it or lose it, essentially, within the allowed time.
Right, use it or lose it. Okay, now, something that jumped out at me was the limit. How many times can you actually take this leave? It's not unlimited, is it?
No, definitely not. That's a really crucial detail. It's available for the first 4 deliveries.
Search 4.
Yeah, of the employee's legitimate spouse. And another key bit, they have to be living together, cohabiting.
Okay, so 4 times max with your current spouse you live with. That applies across the board. Private sector, public sector.
Yes, the sources say it covers married male employees in both. Public sector guys fall under the civil service rules for this. Yeah.
Interesting limit, that 4 times. Any thoughts on why that might be?
Well, the sources don't spell out the why, but you could speculate, maybe. Perhaps it's seen as a balance
A balance between what?
between, supporting new families, which is clearly the goal, and maybe the practical impact on employers. Just a thought.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk timing. When do these 7 days actually happen? Does it have to be like the minute the baby arrives?
Good question. So taking it right after the birth is common, obviously. Probably most helpful then.
Yeah.
But the sources suggest there might be some wiggle room, depending on the company's own policy. Maybe you could take it slightly before or during the delivery.
Oh.
But the absolute deadline, the hard rule, is that all 7 days have to be used up within 60 days after the delivery date.
60 days, so roughly 2 months.
Right. But there's an exception we should mention for miscarriage.
Oh.
The rules seem to say you don't strictly need to apply beforehand in that situation, which makes sense given how sensitive and unpredictable that can be.
Yeah, that's a thoughtful exception. Okay, so we know it's 7 days, 4 times max, within 60 days. Now, who exactly qualifies? Is it married male employees
Right.
in both sectors? But any finer points? Does your job type matter? Like probationary versus regular?
Actually, the sources say it's pretty broad there. It includes guys on probation.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, probationary, regular employees, even contractual or project-based folks. It's quite inclusive in that sense.
Good to know. And government employees too, under civil service rules, you said.
Correct.
So let's really drill down into the conditions, the absolute must-haves to get this leave. What are the boxes you have to tick?
Okay, there are a few key ones. First, and this is crucial, you have to be legally married to your spouse.
At the time of the birth.
Exactly, at the time of the delivery or miscarriage. And spouse here means your lawful wife.
Okay. Legal marriage. What else?
Second, you need to be cohabiting with her, living together.
Right. At the time of the birth or miscarriage.
Yes.
Yeah.
At that specific time. Now, cohabiting means, the normal obligation of spouses to live together.
But what if, say, someone works away from home? Like FIFO or something?
Ah, good point. The sources actually clarify that. If you're separated because of work, like your job location requires it, that doesn't automatically disqualify you.
Okay, that's a practical clarification. Recognizes modern work situations.
Exactly. So, legal marriage, cohabiting, with that work exception. What else?
Third, you generally need to apply for the leave.
Apply beforehand.
Usually, yes,
Ah,
within a reasonable time frame before the expected date, or, whatever your company policy or CBA says.
a CBA being.
Oh, right, collective bargaining agreement. That's the deal between a company and a union setting out work terms.
Got it. So apply reasonably ahead, unless.
Unless it's a miscarriage, as we mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
then prior application isn't strictly needed. But you do need to notify your employer
Notify them about what?
about the pregnancy itself and the expected delivery date. That notification seems pretty important.
Okay. Makes sense for planning. And the last condition.
Seems obvious, but it's stated. The wife must have actually given birth or had a miscarriage.
Right. That's the trigger event. Okay. Understood. Now, the sources brought up some specific situations that might cause confusion.
Yeah, let's tackle those. What about, what if it's an intentional abortion? Does paternity leave apply?
The sources are very clear on this. No. Paternity leave is specifically not granted in cases of intentional abortion.
And the reasoning.
The stated reason is that the leave is meant for childbirth or miscarriage recovery and care. Neither applies there.
Okay, clear distinction. What about remarriage? If a guy gets married again, does his count of 4 deliveries start over?
Yes, it does. The sources explicitly say the entitlement resets.
So, new spouse, new count of 4.
Exactly. A new count of 4 potential paternity leaves with the new legitimate spouse, assuming they're cohabiting. What happened with the previous spouse is considered immaterial, legally speaking.
Right. Each marriage is treated separately for this benefit.
Yeah.
Okay? And one more tricky one about cohabitation.
Ah, yes.
What if the wife isn't living with the husband at the time of birth, but she's like really close by? Maybe staying with her parents a few blocks away. Still counts.
Based on the sources, no. They seem quite firm, even if she's nearby, if they aren't actually cohabiting at the time of delivery.
He could be denied the leave.
Yes, the entitlement could be denied. It really underscores how central that cohabitation requirement is, unless, again, it's that work-related separation we talked about.
So it seems the law really aims to support the family unit where they are actually living together at that critical time.
That seems to be the implication, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on what it is, who gets it, the conditions. Now let's talk about how it interacts with other leave, specifically maternity leave. There's sometimes confusion there, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is a really important clarification. People wonder if it's the same thing or if one replaces the other.
So what's the deal?
They are completely separate. The 7 days of paternity leave are in addition to any days the mother might transfer to the father from her own maternity leave.
Under the expanded maternity leave law, you mean?
Exactly. So a father could potentially get his 7 days of paternity leave plus some transfer days from the mother's leave.
Oh, okay. That's crucial. They stack, they don't cancel each other out.
Precisely. 2 distinct benefits supporting both parents.
Good. Now, what about company policies? Or those CBAs, the union agreements? What if a company already offers some kind of paternity leave?
Right. The rule of thumb is whatever is more generous wins.
Meaning?
Meaning if your company policy or CBA gives you, say, 10 days of paternity leave,
More than the legal minimum of 7?
then you get the 10 days, the better benefit prevails.
Okay. But what if the company policy offers less? Like maybe only 5 days?
Then the employer has to adjust. They must provide at least the legal minimum of 7 days.
So the law sets the floor.
Exactly. 7 days is the minimum standard everyone is entitled to, if they meet the conditions. And interestingly, even if a company just has a general emergency leave policy, but nothing specific called paternity leave,
You still have to grant the 7 days.
yes. If an eligible employee needs it for childbirth or miscarriage, the company has to provide those 7 days, regardless of what their internal policy is called or lacks.
The legal minimum ensures that base level of support.
Got it. Okay, quickly then, the application process. We touched on it, but just to recap.
Sure. It's generally straightforward. The main thing is notifying your employer.
About the pregnancy and the due date?
Yep. Tell them about the pregnancy and the expected delivery date. Do it within a reasonable time frame.
And the exception again.
For miscarriage, that prior formal application isn't mandatory. Notification afterwards would still be needed, of course.
Right. And finally, the sources didn't go deep into non-discrimination specifically for paternity leave, did they?
Not in detail, no. But
But it's kind of a general principle in labor law, isn't it? That you shouldn't be penalized for taking leave you're entitled to.
absolutely. The whole framework of labor law aims to protect employees when they exercise their legal rights and use their benefits. That principle would certainly apply here. Okay, good. So let's try and wrap this up. Key takeaways seem to be 7 days, paid leave. For married dads.
For the first 4 births or miscarriages with their current spouse.
And they have to be living together at the time.
Right, cohabiting. Crucial point.
And it's totally separate from and on top of any maternity leave days the mom might transfer over.
Correct. Distinct benefits. And eligibility requires meeting those specific conditions we discussed. Marriage, cohabitation, timely application usually.
Okay. I think that covers the core essentials from the sources. Now, thinking about all this, all these rules and details, what's the bigger picture?
How do you mean?
Well, how does having a really clear understanding of these paternity leave policies, how does that actually help create a better workplace? One that's more supportive, more equitable for parents?
That's a really insightful question to ponder. Well, I think when everyone knows the rules, knows what support is available, it just allows families to plan better, doesn't it?
Reduces uncertainty during a huge life change.
Exactly. And beyond the practical planning, it sends a message, right? From the employer that they value family life, that they support fathers being involved.
And that could lead to?
Well, potentially more loyalty, better morale, maybe even attracting talent. But fundamentally, it fosters a culture where juggling work and family for both parents is seen as normal and supported that feels more equitable.
That's a great point. It's not just about the days off. It's about the culture it helps build.
Oh,
really well put.
Thanks.
So thanks for breaking all that down with us. And for everyone listening, here's something to chew on, building on that last point. Given all these specifics we've unpacked about paternity leave, what are some ways you think a clear understanding of these policies can contribute to a more supportive and equitable work environment for both parents?